Okay, Elizabeth, I am so thrilled to have you today on the show to talk about your new book, All the Feels, which I absolutely love the title of. I'm so excited about it. And by the time this comes out, the book will be in the world, which probably feels crazy for you to hear during this crazy season that we were just talking about before we hit record. So excited to have you. And I would love for you to share a little bit about your heart for the book and why this message is important for readers, especially during this season.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to getting to know you and spending time together. You know, a lot of times the way I approach sort of figuring out what to write about next is I try to think, okay, what do I need? what book do I need that I wish had existed at different points in my life? And this is really the book that I have needed my whole life, because I am a big feeler, and emotions have been my constant companion my whole life. Sometimes they've been an incredible blessing. Other times they've been a bit of a challenge. And so I've just needed help my whole life with, where do my emotions, all these big feelings of mine, where do they fit into my faith walk? What does God think about them? How would he have me to use the good parts and maybe reshape or redirect the parts that are hard and that aren't who I want to be or who he wants me to be? So yeah, this book is the result of a lifetime of struggle and angst and pillow pounding and, just trying to figure out my feelings in light of God's word. So that's really, I hope it gives other people the encouragement and the tools that they need as they grapple with their big feelings and faith.
Yeah, I love the subtitle. It says, Discover Why Emotions Are Mostly Awesome and How to Untangle Them When They're Not. And I think that's so helpful kind of to give context to the book as well. And when I got the advanced reader copy, I was so excited. I told you I haven't made it through the whole book yet. But as we talked before we hit record, the last year of my life, really, if any word could mark that year, it would really be change. So I got married last May of 19, and I moved from Knoxville, Tennessee, which was a place I had known and lived and loved for 10 years. Grew up in Tennessee in a different part of the state. And really in the blink of an eye, I got married. I moved 9 hours from everything I've ever known, left my family, left all my friends, became a pastor's wife, started a new job. And on the outside, all of those things are beautiful things, awesome things, positive things, and such blessings from God. But it took me, so on our first wedding anniversary, we were just talking about, how much change we had both went through, because it was a change for my husband as well. He was already down in South Mississippi pastoring here when we got married. So all those changes really hit me probably the hardest. And of course, marriage is an adjustment for anybody. So he had that adjustment as well. But I found this stress inventory test, and it just happened to be like the day of or day after our anniversary. And I took it. And what it was measuring your stress level on was the amount of change that you've experienced in the last year of your life. And so, it took everything from, your recreational activities, has that changed? Have you moved? So we actually moved into a rental house that he was in before we got married. Then God opened up another home that is just so perfect for us. But we did move also in the last year. So I moved twice. And so anyway, it took all these things into consideration, and it spit your results out. And, everything was kind of on a continuum. If your point level was basically above 200, what the results said was that you could expect to have a major health breakdown in the next 3 years of your life. And my score was like 503 based off all that I had experienced. And even though that feels scary to see that number, it was really helpful to me to think back on, man, maybe that's why I feel like such a crazy person. In this season. And there's lots of feelings going on about all of that, good, bad, ugly, and different. And so this is just a really relevant conversation to me. And I know a lot of my readers, because as we've talked, we are both in ministry families, as are a lot of our listeners. And so emotions come into play in all of that. So I'm really excited to have this conversation today. It's very relevant to my life.
Wow, what a year you have had. I feel stressed just hearing about your year. I think my stress level just approached 200.
Yes. So this is just so good. I'm so excited. And I think it's helpful, which leads into our next question, to talk about, there's different kinds of feelers, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to hear you kind of define these. You describe 3 different kinds of feelers. So there's big feelers, steady feelers, and reluctant feelers. So can you describe these, and what do you think are some of their strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah. Okay. So this is so fun to talk about. If you love a good, personality test or whatever, it's fun diving into this. So, I touched on sort of who I am as a big feeler. Big feelers are the people who, they don't just wear their heart on their sleeve. They wear it all over their outfit, their face, their hairdo. It's just like oozing out of their pores. They have very, they may have been told that they have thin skin, that other people's feelings and the hard things of life tend to sort of cross their emotional boundaries very easily. They're very sensitive. They may be artistic, creative, very emotional with God, easily moved by worship, music, art. So they have this beautiful deep side. I think the challenges are, you can get overwhelmed by the depth and strength and frequency of your feelings and not always know, how do I deal with this in godly ways? Like, how do I lead my emotions instead of my emotions leading me? It can be difficult as a big feeler. Sometimes you're so dominated by your feelings that you sort of, as sensitive as you are and as empathetic as you are, you can sort of lose sight of other people's feelings in the middle of your mess. You can get a little stuck in yourself, And so for me in my marriage, I've really had to learn to share emotional space at home, that just because I'm having a big feeling day, other people in my family are feeling stuff too. And I can't just go to that deep, dark, lost in myself place. So those are a few of the challenges that I think big feelers have to contend with. The next type is a steady feeler. And, steady feelers are uniquely gifted in that they have these deep feelings, and they have that super compassionate, emotionally intelligent side, but they also have this gift where they can box those feelings up when it's not appropriate to go there yet, and sort of say, I'm going to deal with this a little bit later. I'm going to stay steady because everything's falling apart. I can't go down right now. That's going to be harder for a big feeler to do, but a steady feeler is going to be able to stay steady. I think what can happen to the steady feeler is when those big feelings do come, every once in a while, it just knocks them on their backside and they're like, whoa, why did my box just fly open? I don't know what to do with this. Mm-hmm. Or they can sort of get caught in the middle of giving to others because they're so steady, and then not making room for themselves and saying, okay, but I have my stuff I need to work on as well. So I think those are some of the challenges the steady feeler can face. And then we have the reluctant feeler who, if you reluctant feelers out there have made it this far in the conversation, I'm giving you a big old fist bump. I know, because you have been twitching this whole time. You've been like, this makes me so uncomfortable. Let's talk about the real stuff. Why do we need to talk about feelings? Let's just talk about facts from the Bible. And this is why we love you, because you're logical, you're reasonable, you're fair-minded. You are concerned with what's right and what's just and what's true. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get easily swayed by opinions or feelings or the mood of the day. It's a wonderful strength that you have that the rest of us really need from you. But of course, your challenge is being in touch, and you've probably heard this and hated it your whole life, but being more in touch with your emotional side, not being afraid of your feelings. Learning when do you need to open up the door of your heart and feel some stuff. And even having the awareness that even when you don't need to talk about feelings, and when you don't need to process, the bigger feelers in your life probably do. So how do you deal with others and their emotions? What role can you play? How can you invite them and make space for their feelings?
If you've ever taken your earrings off at the end of the day with that big sigh of relief, you need to hear about comfy earrings. Comfy earrings are flat back, hypoallergenic earrings designed for 24/7 wear. No poking, no irritation, just beautiful, lightweight earrings that stay comfortable whether you're sleeping, traveling, working out, or running from one project to the next. They're perfect for women with sensitive ears, and they come in so many gorgeous everyday styles. Check them out at comfyearrings.com or through the link in the description. Refresh your jewelry box with earrings you'll never want to take off. Trust me, your ears will thank you. Now, back to the show. Looking for non-toxic, high-quality soap made by a company you can trust? Let me introduce you to Indigo Sundries, a Christian, family-owned small business that's been handcrafting soap for over 20 years. Every bar is made the old-fashioned way and free from seed oils, parabens, phthalates, sulfates, and all the other things your skin just doesn't need. Just clean, skin-loving ingredients that actually leave you feeling moisturized and refreshed. Whether you love a good fragrance, prefer essential oils, or need a simple unscented bar, Indigo Sundries has something for everyone, plus liquid soaps, room sprays, and beard products too. Get free shipping on orders over $50, and don't forget to use code Rebecca10 for 10% off at checkout. Treat your skin to the good stuff at indigosundries.com.
Oh, that's so good. I can't wait to have a conversation with my husband about this. So if you think in terms of the Enneagram, I'm a 3 and my husband is an 8. So we're a very strong household. That's a kind way to put it. And so if for listeners who don't know a ton about the Enneagram, 3s can be chameleons to people in their lives, right? And so it's kind of like whatever you need me to be, I'm going to be for you, right? Emotionally, and in every other way as well, if you go into the kind of that unhealthy space. And so one thing I've learned, or we have learned in our marriage, is I do that when my husband needs to process hard things in ministry, right? Like if he's having a hard day, that's fine. I'm fine with not having a hard day, even if, I am struggling through something. I will box it up, and and those boxes will continue to stack on top of each other until we have a total DEFCON 5 explosion. And that's exactly, I am a steady feeler. So that was so helpful for me. Yep. And he is a reluctant feeler. And I'm so thankful for that quality in him. And I would say that he is thankful that I don't spew venom at him when he's spewing venom about something else, right? Like they complement each other. There are ways in which it can become unhealthy. And so we've seen that play out, and man, nothing will teach you that like marriage. So that's helpful to kind of define. So hopefully kind of seeing that play out in our lives. Listeners will have heard a lot about kind of my personality. And so maybe you can kind of think about your own personality and see where you might kind of fall on that spectrum. And yes, bless you, reluctant feelers, if you're still listening.
We're so glad you're here.
So thankful you're here. We want you to stay. So that's so good. And one thing you said kind of as we opened up is, asking yourself the question, what does God think about our feelings and our emotions? So I'd be curious, do you think God cares about our emotions? And then what role are they to play in our walk with God?
It's funny. I think depending on what kind of faith environment you grew up in, your answer to that question could be all over the place. Some of us grow up in very emotional religious scenes where it's like, it's all feeling and it's all, expressing big feelings to God. And you sort of search for that. And if you're not feeling big feelings, you think, what's wrong with me? Do I even have faith if I'm not the one weeping and, being all intense and dramatic? You could come from that side of things, I think. And then others come from a place where it's like, you put your feelings in airplane mode when you walk into church and you put on your church face, and we are serious and we are righteous and we say the right things, and we don't feel, we just do what God tells us to do. And, I think God, what's so great about the Bible is an emotionally rich book that does express and show us people having every imaginable emotional response.
Yes.
And even one that shows God himself being incredibly expressive emotionally. I mean, God grieves, he's angry, he's loving, he's thrilled when a lost person comes back to him. I mean, God, he runs the gamut of emotions. So absolutely, is there a place for our emotions in our faith? Yes. Does God welcome it? Yes. But the Bible also does have some really wonderful practical help for us in terms of, okay, what do we do with the harder feelings that we know don't really reflect the heart of God? What about when bitterness boils over? What about when, guilt becomes unhealthy and drives a wedge between us and God or people, and shame, and we can't accept grace? So, some of those harder feelings, the Bible has a lot to say, and a lot of ways it can help us to process those things.
Yeah, that's so helpful. So I think one question that, might be hard for a listener to step up and ask, so I'll ask it, is, are we allowed to express our real feelings to God in prayer, even when they're not, and I'm doing air quotes, righteous?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think if you look at the prayers in the Psalms, the Psalms are intended as songs and or prayers, or both. They express every emotion that you and I have ever experienced. I mean, and sometimes it's shocking. Sometimes I read it and I'm like, wow, how did that not get edited out of the Bible? I mean, I read this week one, which I've read before, but I was shocked all over again, where David is like talking about his enemies, and he's like, break the teeth of the wicked, let their children be fatherless and their wives widows. And I was like, whoa, David, a little bitter there, a little vindictive. This is David, the man after God's own heart.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that necessarily reflects God's heart, but the thing is, God allowed those raw things in scripture for a reason. It's as if God is saying, I can take it. Like, I want to shoulder this for you and with you. I want to help you through this. You're not going to scare me away. And even there are places in the Psalms and really throughout scripture where people question God, not in a finger pointing, you're doing wrong way. There's a level of respect they maintain, but they'll even say, like, how long, O Lord? Like, why do you stand by silent? And I think a lot of us have secretly felt that the last few months with everything with COVID and this time of unrest. And we felt like, God, why aren't you fixing this? Like, where are you? And the Bible, it acknowledges that we have those questions, and God's like, we can have those talks. We can talk. Bring it to me.
I love that. And I think what we forget when we don't want to be that real with God in prayer is we forget his omniscience, right? Like, he already so intimately knows our hearts better than we ourselves know our hearts, right? Because a lot of us are really good about stuffing all the things, I'm really fine. It's fine, God, and so I think those reminders, even just reading through the Psalms, I would challenge, like, if that's a challenge for you, a great thing to do would be to go read some Psalms and go read David's heart and just be reminded that, our God is all powerful. He can handle, our deepest, darkest emotions. And so that's a good reminder, I'm sure, for listeners today. And another struggle kind of in the same vein is many people, and I would imagine these would be a lot of big feelers and probably a lot of steady feelers, struggle with borrowing other people's burdens. So what are some practical ways to develop some emotional boundaries if a listener has this struggle?
Yes. Well, first of all, I completely have this struggle. This is a hard thing for me. And so it's been something that I've really wrestled with God, because I think one of the things as Christians that we can struggle with is, well, we're supposed to care and we're supposed to love. And the Bible even says, like, carry each other's burdens. And in this way you fulfill the law of Christ. So we can get kind of muddled, like, well, where do I draw that line? Because I'm so overwhelmed that I'm having a hard time living my own life because I'm carrying so many other people's pain. Yeah. And so I think some of that is wrestling through that in prayer. Looking at the example of Jesus, I think you know, anytime I'm like, okay, what does my faith need to look like in action? Jesus showed us how, you know, and one of the things that I really admire about Jesus is he was so empathetic. I mean, there's this word that the Bible uses in Greek. Forgive me for having like a quick Bible geek moment.
Love
it. Where it says splagnizomai. It literally what it means is Jesus insides went out to people. It's this visceral emotional connection that Jesus would have with people. And I want to say maybe 3 different times where the Bible uses that verb for Jesus. He sees this widow mourning the death of her only son. The rich young ruler, he had that reaction just looking at people and such intense love. But Jesus, what's so interesting about him is he had that ability to love intensely, but then also let people make their own choices and keep moving. And I think what we see in Jesus is he knew that God was God and that these people had to deal with God and he couldn't decide for people. So that's something that helps me, I think, looking at Jesus' example. I talk a lot. I wish I had time to like really unpack this analogy, but one of the things I talk about, my husband actually came up with this idea of like our emotional boundaries kind of working the way our cells in our body work, where like cells, things can go like passively cross the border of our cells and just materials can go in. And then the cells have to decide, do I need this or not? Like, do I keep it and digest it and grow as into another little happy cell, or do I need to kick this out? And we have that choice to make. Sometimes emotions from other people cross our boundaries passively. We're not like inviting them in. It's just, oh, I heard this sad story on Facebook. I read this hard thing that's happening to this acquaintance, and it just comes in and it hurts you. But then we have to make some choices of, do I let this stay? Or do I need to wrap it up in prayer and send it into God's hands instead of holding on to it with mine? So I have a lot more to say about that in the book, but that's sort of a nutshell definition.
Yeah, that analogy is really helpful. And as you were talking, it reminded me of an earlier podcast episode that I did this year with Gary Thomas. So I don't know if you've read his new book about toxic relationships. It's called When to Walk Away.
I haven't read the new one, no.
Yeah, so I don't know that I've seen another book like it. And I'm so thankful that he wrote it. I told him when I interviewed him, he is like that guy that will take on subjects and approach them biblically that nobody else wants to talk about. Like he has another book about, it's on my shelf over here. It's called Every Body Matters. And it's about like everything the Bible has to say about fitness and self-discipline and gluttony and you know, so just hard, he talks about hard things. And his answer was similar to yours in that he had a really toxic relationship. And once he got past the situation, he wanted to write the book that he wishes he would have had in the middle of the situation. So what he did was he read through the Gospels and looked at the life of Jesus to see, you know, what was there about how Jesus handled toxic people. So the book is all about what he found, and it is, I won't ruin it, but you should order it and read it. But if listeners have not listened to that conversation, it's a really good one. And I think that would be a really good companion to this book, because we all have those situations in our lives, and it is hard to figure out, you know, how do I set that boundary? What does that look like? It looks different for each friendship, each relationship. It looks different based on the association, right? Is it a toxic boss? Is it a toxic friend? All those situations, and you can have multiple of them happening in your life at the same time. That's super stressful, but handling them looks differently depending on the relationship. So that's a really helpful resource. So Elizabeth, how can a better understanding of our emotions help us just deepen our relationships and then also become the people God designed us to be?
Yeah, I mean, emotions are, in so many ways, they're like the best part of who we are. They're what make life worth living. That's how we're not robots. You know what I mean? I think the more that we can connect emotionally in our faith with God and see God as part of this emotional journey through life, that he wants to comfort us through our grief. He wants to celebrate and rejoice with us when good things happen. Like he's the one who will never get tired of your stories. You know, as a newlywed, I'm sure you've had like a million billion things that you like, you want to tell your friends all the time. And after a while, they're like, but you're really not done like sharing this wonderfulness or awfulness or whatever the day may bring.
Right.
And yet God, he never runs out of emotional space for us. He wants to walk through life, the good, the bad, and the ugly with us. And then I think too, just a better understanding of who we are emotionally in our relationships. It helps us to understand sort of our triggers. It helps us to understand what we have to give to others. It helps us understand, okay, what do I need to guard against? Like, am I someone who disconnects and runs away when relationships get hard? Am I someone who I express every single hurt feeling and then I scare people away? Like, what are my tendencies and how can I use my gifts to strengthen my relationships and make them richer, and then avoid the pitfalls that can sometimes trip me up? So there's so much to it.
Oh yeah. That's so helpful. I love it. Okay. So there's a question that I ask every guest that comes on the show. And so I'm super excited to ask you. And that is, what do you think is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Oh my goodness.
I know.
I've been given so much good advice. Okay. So I'll tell you, one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten is from my husband. And it happened actually early in our marriage, probably within a year and a half or so of us getting married. And we drove up to our little house. We had this little rental house, this cute like craftsman house in downtown Atlanta. We're campus ministers. So kind of like you, new ministry job, new city, new church, new marriage, new everything. So for me, the big feelings were flying constantly. Yeah. So on this particular night, I'm feeling all the feelings. I'm overwhelmed. I'm upset. I don't even know what all I was upset about. But Kevin, in his really adorable, steady feeling way, he sort of made a joke and he's like, do you see that house? That is the happy house. And happy people get to go in that house. Happy things happen there. We're happy together. We have a good life. We love each other. God is good. Like, yes, life is a little complicated, but it's good. And I mean, I kind of laughed and was annoyed at the same time. But I remember that moment so clearly because it was the first time that I realized that, you know, I can put some boundaries on my emotions and I can choose the emotional atmosphere I want in my home. I can choose to leave my stress at the door and with God, not like ignoring it, but I can deal with it. And I can say, you know what, in my house, I'm going to be giving and I'm not going to let stress rule me. I can make choices about my feelings and about the way I live. So it really was a turning point, I think, emotionally for me, where I really started learning more how to lead my emotions instead of the other way around.
Yeah, that's so good. One of the best pieces of advice, the best statements I've ever heard about emotions was, our emotions are real, but they're not always reliable. And that has always been so helpful to me to think, you know, okay, I can own and accept the fact that they are real. And so I'm not going to pretend like they don't exist. I'm not going to box them up. I'm going to deal with them head on. I'm going to give them over to God, but I also am not going to let them rule my mind. And they're not always going to be reliable in my life. And so that statement's always been super helpful to me, especially in the last year of life. So, okay. Well, Elizabeth, tell all the people where they can just see all of your resources, get your books, get in contact with you, all the things.
Yeah. Well, my website is elizabethlangthompson.com, and I have all kinds of free stuff and blog posts and lists of scriptures, that kind of thing there. I'm on Facebook. I think my handle is a Lizzie Life, which nobody actually calls me Lizzie, but sometimes, you know, in social media they do, Lizzy, and on Instagram at Elizabeth Lang Thompson. So yeah, pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited about this book and excited for you as it goes out into the world. And I can't wait for listeners to listen to this conversation. So thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you so much for having me.